Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
It's wonderful to have all of you join us from various parts of the country, but I think there's a common thread binding all of us, which is that all of you are rocking entrepreneurs and very rocking mompreneurs. And we're going to use this morning to spread the inspiration, to bring in a lot of interaction and make it a happy, fun conversation. Uh, so here's how we'll go. I'm going to request each one of you to start by sharing an introduction of you, what you do, what's your business, and the life you have at the moment. And we'll take it from there. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks. So Monica, we'll start with you. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Monica Manchanda. I'm an ex-IT geek, worked for about 14 years in a software industry and then decided to change tracks. I currently run Cinnamon, which is a food enterprise, which is broadly into gourmet catering, food consulting, workshops, and food writing. I have a 6.5-year-old son and a 1-year-old hyperactive dog. Actually, both of them are very hyperactive. So I live with a family, with my husband, my mother-in-law, and 2 brats in Bangalore, and I run my business out of there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anu, we'd like you to share that as well.
So I'm the CEO of Map My Genome, and this is my second entrepreneurial venture. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur and then worked for a few years before I decided to start a company in genomics, which was a little bit unheard of at that time. So in 2000, I started my first company, and about a year ago or so, I moved into the second one, which is Map My Genome, which is essentially about being able to map people's genetic risk based on their blood or saliva sample. And I have 2 daughters and a dog that Monica just reminded me I have also. So I also live with in a joint family, and I think that's what makes it a lot easier.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we'll know more about you and your business in just a moment. Let's ask Deepta first.
Yeah, my name is Deepta Vivekanand. I currently run a learning and development company. It's called Ever After, where we do training workshops, after-school programs, and all of that based on stories and storytelling. So that's really the crux of the business. We have a range of services, and we're also getting into the product space very soon. Before this, I was with Wipro as a corporate trainer, and that's how that's where the change really happened. I was looking to move out and do something on my own. I discovered storytelling, and that's where I am right now. I live in Bangalore with my husband, and I have a 3-year-old son. His name is Vedant. He's currently on YouTube. So that's what's happening currently, yes.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Wonderful to hear that. When you were talking, Deepta, I couldn't help noticing that you spoke about discovery. The discovery of love for storytelling happened.
Yes.
And Anu mentioned that genomics happened into her life even before people knew what genomics was. And I think Monica has a similar story where she was trying to go back to a corporate job, but I think love for food took over. So what and this is a very interesting piece because a lot of women who want to turn entrepreneurial have many ideas. We all have many interests, but picking up that one idea, that moment of discovery, or that moment when you realize that this is what I want to do, or this is something that I want to give a shot to. And I'd really like you guys to share a little bit of your experience on how did you refine that idea? What brought you to that idea? And of course, it must have been an iterative process. It must have been a learning process. Monica, do you want to start?
Yeah, so like you're saying, somewhere along the line you do discover what you really love. Like it says that if you love your work, it stops being work. So how do you go about it's actually very fine. I mean, it's very funny that there is a snapping point, yet there is a long line. So there is a point where you discover, okay, this is what you want to do, but then you go on refining that. From that, this is what I want to do, to where do you really want to and how do you really want to. So in my case, this is what I do came in pretty easily, that okay, I want to do something in the food business, because for me food is not just food, it adds on, it's a lot more value to food. It's memories, it's emotions, it's stress buster, and it's a lot more. It's a much bigger part of the life just from food. So I was very clear I want to do something around it. But from there to what was a journey which was a little, okay, what now? It started with a food blog, went on to only baking. The business actually started with catering to a cafe called Chai Patti in Indranagar. And as, as a matter of fact, I had met Chirag in one of the Flexi Mom meet, I remember. And then he bounces off an idea, would you like to supply to me? And it took off from there. But I think from the time I started 2.5 years ago to now, the offerings have changed so much, the business has evolved so much. So I think it's a constant process where you kind of reevaluate yourself and keep reevaluating what do you want to do, and hence keep looking at whether you still want to do the same, or you want to kind of change it a little bit.
Anu, how did it work out for you?
So I think I was, at least while I was in school, I was pretty confident that all I wanted to do was to get a Nobel Prize. But once I moved on to college, I realized I had different, there was a very different personality that I was born with, and I had sort of started to enjoy that. And so once I was in IIT, I think within my first year or so, I decided that I do want to do something which would be on my own. However, at that time, I did not think about starting something immediately while I was at college. But I wanted to go to the US, get some higher education. So I went for an MS degree. It was supposed to be a PhD, and I was very clear that this is something that I want to do. I want to build a business. But and I had articulated this to my head of the department. Of course, at that time, I was just saying, just to move from physics to information systems, which was in the business school. But I think for me, it was a process that over a period of time evolved. But knowing your own strengths was self-realization was part of it. And once I went there, then I started working for a startup. And I think that was when I was convinced that I could do this. And I could do this, I could do something that could be impact creating and could last for a long time. But between the time that I was working for the startup to when I actually started my own startup, I think there were, even while I was still doing my MS and all, there were many missteps. There were many things where we said, we wanted to do a bandwidth bazaar, which was our first, company that we created. We also created something known as e-voicegram and others. So there were lots of ideas. And I think that ideation is the first stage of being able to get there. But when you want to ultimately create a business, I think you have to dedicate your life to it. And I think for me, that moment came in '99 when I said, it's fine, we've thought about different ideas. But what would really matter would be to be able to create a business where you do not think about, do I have a safety net or not? And I think that was in '99 when we gave up our jobs and decided that this is what I wanted to do, and packed up our bags and in 2000 moved back to India. We registered the company in the US and then came back. And it was quite interesting because I was 28 at that time, no clue about, even knowing what genomics was about, but it seemed like a difficult enough idea that would keep me engaged over a period of time. And I think that was, for me, was the motivation to be able to get my business started. So.
Interesting. I think we'll come back to many things that you mentioned there. Let's hear it from Deepta. Deepta, how did you get here? And if I'm not wrong, yours is a very recent venture, isn't it? So you're
That's right. Yes.
Fresh in this journey of turning entrepreneurial and moving away from the corporate big job. So yeah, tell us more.
So I think the corporate job was was a result of the assembly line that we all go through. You know, we go through school, we go through college, then we get into a job, not really knowing if this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I think I was a product of that setup in many ways. But I always knew that I wanted to do something on my own. I always wanted to lead something. And I was also good at, you know, communicating. I was good at language, and I was very interested in education. So learning and development kind of, my role, my job as a corporate trainer kind of gave me that foundation to look beyond what I can do within the scope of my 9-to-5 job. So when I was looking up various skill sets that I could acquire on my own and to make a difference in the way I teach something or communicate something, that's how storytelling really happened. And then from then on, it just was, you know, I did a few courses, and I had a chance to actually work with different groups of people using storytelling. And that's when I realized that the impact that I was making was far more than what I was doing within you know, the confines of a corporate training room, so to speak. So and it also became a good marriage. Storytelling was something I really enjoyed. I saw a lot of my own elements of my personality coming out a lot better in that medium. It was also a great way to teach. So I had to kind of step back and see if this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And it's one thing to have an idea, but then, you know, when you have to look at how it makes business sense as well. So that took me a little time, like you mentioned, ideate, you know, look at what are the various things that I need to put this into a working plan. So all of that took some time, I quit my job way back in 2009. But between then and last year, when I started, when I launched my venture, that amount of time was really needed for me to step back and evaluate a lot of things. I had a child. I couldn't have jumped into it at that point, so I had to take a small break. But in the background, the idea was still sort of growing, and it was developing. I was talking to people about how to, you know, make this concrete. And last year is when I decided that, you know, it was time to really take the plunge, and that's how Ever After began. It still is I mean, it's still an evolving business, but at least now there is a lot more clarity in terms of where I want to go and what level I want to take it to. So that's how I'm here.
Brilliant, brilliant, wonderful. So we'll come back to more business questions in just a moment. But the thing that I really want to ask each one of you is, what happened this morning? I know Monica mentioned just before we were going to get online that there is a brownie in the oven. And I think what I'm really trying to instigate is that paradox conversation we are faced with all the time, but also maybe somewhere showcase how work and life fit together, how they blend in. So while a lot of entrepreneurial journeys are not about less work, but finding the fit. So Monica, tell us about the brownie and what happened this morning.
Morning, I had a mad morning. I woke up at about 5:45, sent my son to school, rushed my dog to work, went for a swim, came back, put breakfast on table, put a brownie in the oven, and while we were trying to set this up, I had a brownie which I ran and came, and then you guys said, Monica, come back, Monica, come back. Yeah, so I guess apart from being exciting, apart from being thing, what I tell most people is being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's not something that you say that, okay, fine, just because I can't do a 9-to-5 job, let me become an entrepreneur. It's not easy. It is tough. There's a lot of juggling to be done. But yeah, you have your own flexibilities. You move your own schedules from here to there and kind of work around on what works best for you. But most days, it is a mad day, madhouse in my house. There's a morning nutshell for you.
All right. So Anu, you had a mad morning too?
No, it was a relatively decent morning. I woke up, I jogged for 20 minutes, took my daughter to school, came back, I had a call and a couple of calls and meeting, and then this. So normal.
You're fairly structured, it seems. Obviously, we'll come back to the support systems and how you got there in just a moment. Deepta, I saw your son in the picture just a moments ago.
Yeah.
You're sort of doing a lot
Yeah.
of juggling. Tell us a little more.
He was not meant to be at home this morning. So I was supposed to drop him off at his play group for the morning. So I made all of these plans. It all seemed like it was going perfectly fine when I was driving out to drop him, and bang, there was a huge traffic jam. There was no way I could have gotten there, dropped him off, and come back to join the hangout on time. So I had to just do a U-turn, come back, and I said, okay, you'll sit with me. Mama's going to be on a chat. Please keep yourself occupied. I had to give him, my phone or whatever else to play with. So, yeah, I mean, man proposes, God disposes, right? That just played out in my life this morning. And there are many such mornings when you set out to do something, you just can't. You have to always constantly keep finding these workarounds. So yeah, it's never, yeah.
Yeah, so while I was on my way here, so Gauri Bafna was supposed to join us, but we got a message from her to say her daughter's unwell and she's rushing to the school to pick her up because school sent a message. And I was thinking, in every family, there is one person who's really keeping it all together or has this support from someone who's keeping it all together so that we can go out and do what we want to do. And I think uh, whatever we may say about gender equality and the women at work conversation, I do see a lot more women chipping in into the managing the home bit, especially the kids and their schedules. What's your take on that? One, are you the spouse who manages it all or gets help to manage? And of course, how do you see it when you see women around, both in your teams, as your vendors, as your colleagues, as your peers, Monica?
I think if we talk about 5 years, 10 years ago from now, I would kind of agree with you 100% saying, okay, it is more or less the women who kind of running the show, handling the work as well as the home front, in the sense that running around from here to there, putting the child to school, rushing for the food to be on table, and various things. For me personally, the support system has been good. I have a traveling husband, so most of the times the job, he's in sales, so he's in one part of the country one day and the next part of the country the next, and then sometimes I have to figure out and call him himself, okay, where are you? So, but I do have a support system. I have a mother-in-law living with me. I have a live-in maid. Primary responsibility comes on me. Like Gauri, God forbid, I had to rush to the school for an unwell daughter or take the dog to the vet for whatever, 6 times out of 10 it will come to me. If my husband is in town, we kind of try and split. But in the background, I think if you get your support system right, if you get the basics right, then it's more about just trying to manage on how the stuff falls into place. So I think touchwood, for me, that is kind of falling right. But yes, the primary responsibility does come back to me. But I have seen a lot of places where the primary responsibility also is shared. And in my case also, it's pretty much shared if he's in town. So the time when I don't have to worry at all if he's in town, okay, he'll take care of it. Most of the time if he's in town, the evening responsibility, don't even bother. I'm working and he's hands-on from 6:30, 7 o'clock onwards and ahead. So I think times are changing. I see a lot of dads pitching in now.
Lovely. Anu, I know that you live and breathe your business and you run a home which is pretty packed. So obviously you're getting a lot of help, right?
Yes. For me, I think if...
And you're the grown-up now, right? So obviously you've been through the journey. Why don't you tell us? And obviously you made some decisions along the way. Do share.
So I have 2 daughters. One is 7, one is 14, and the dog is 2. But at the same time, I think I live with my mother-in-law, who's a very the house. So when it comes to normal things like like when it comes to things like who's going to manage just logistics, administration, all of that, she is responsible, right? So she knows that she does a much better job. She'll do that. And I think it's the same. I think when it comes to feeding kids on time, doing all of that, I think my grandmother-in-law does a better job in that, right? Or whatever. So you decide who's right for that job, and you do. But at the same time, I think I spend my time with the kids, but the quality time in terms of whatever time I can devote to them. But I do things that which they only like to do with me. And I think, it's very advantageous when you are not doing all these routine things, because then the kids have a much better they are waiting to have that time with you in some ways, right? So for me, it is not, definitely I have not been doing all the things. I would not take credit for what I don't do. But at the same thing, I think similarly, I'd like to delegate in an office. I think I've found that as the much better way, because I think it also improves the relationship between grandmothers want to spend or grandfathers want to spend time with with the grandkids. And I think it's the most efficient way of living in a household where everybody's happy doing what they're doing. So at least that's the way I've looked at it. And when it comes between my husband and me going to school, both of us go or one of us goes. It depends on who has a meeting at that time or not. So it's not about one or the other. If I'm free, I'll go. If he's free, he'll go. But one of us will definitely make sure that we go.
All right. Lovely. I'm sure we'll get you to write about that at some point. That's quite insightful. All right, Deepta. New to the game. Tell us more.
So with me, it's pretty similar to what Monica mentioned. I have a traveling husband too. Of late, he started traveling of late. So it's kind of altered a lot of the way in which I have to organize my day. But most of the day I'm at home. I work from home. So which means most of what my son has to do does come onto my shoulders. The responsibility is with me. So whether it's picking him up from his school or giving him his lunch, making sure that he's doing something, he's occupied. So pretty much my entire day is at home with the kid. My work time really is only after he goes to sleep at night, which is around 8:39. Of course, when my husband comes back from work at around 6:30, he's with him. But during the day, it's really hard to try and do anything focused, because when the child is at home, you're going to have to devote 100% of your attention to him. So, and he's not going to full-time school now. So weekends are a little different, especially when my husband's in town and he's at home. So he's kind of, he's pretty hands-on with him. And weekends usually the time when I have a lot of my workshops and all of that lined up. So I can leave him at home and just go. I used to have a maid also who used to come and watch him, but she's taken off now. So I don't know how things will pan out from this point on. Yes, it is a lot of juggling, but it's about making it work despite all of these things. So somehow things kind of fall in place. You do have your days of frustration, but I think it's about having the motivation to just make it, to just see it through, no matter what. And that's what's kept me going so far. There is, of course, a support system will definitely add more value. I don't have my in-laws living with me or my parents who live in the same town or anything like that. So it's that much more tedious. But I think there is a fun in doing it that way as well.
All right, brilliant. So I see some very interesting threads emerging. One is, I think, the question of flexibility and how I think having children makes it far more different than any other constraint that you may have. And of course, I see that the ones doing it are doing it in spite of the constraints and not without them. So in the SHEROES community, we talk to a lot of women who have ideas, who have something that they would like to do, which is entrepreneurial, a home-based business, or service-based business, maybe a tech startup, maybe a education firm. Many of these women are actually sitting on the fence. They are really saying, how do I go about it? I don't have help. I don't have joint family. Maybe the level of constraint is even a step further. And of course, it also has to do with the level of personal clarity that one has. But I think given that you have treaded a similar journey, what would you say to people who are just sort of toying with ideas? There are a lot of internal conversations. Maybe they're going out and seeking help. But If they came to you, what would you say, Monica?
Number one, start writing. I mean, we all have ideas, but sometimes they're just so vague that we don't know what to do with them. So for me, what helps me is just take a paper and a pen or an Excel sheet or a Word document, whatever you're more comfortable with, and start penning your thoughts. And the minute you start writing and start give it in the form, it gives you more clarity. You get more questions to yourself, you get more clarity within this. Two, there is no right time. You just have to take the plunge and go ahead if you have it in you. There are going to be problems, yes. There are going to be hurdles, yes. It's going to be mad days, absolutely, yes. It's hard, yes. But then that's life. I mean, it's the same when you go to a 9 to 5 job. You come back home at 5, yes, but it is hard. This 9 to 5 are maddening. So any work that you want to do, you have to put in that hard work and get it done. So get a little clarity by writing and get started. I mean, worst come worst, what is going to happen? The business is not going to work, but you're going to have a satisfied feeling to yourself that you tried, you did what you wanted to.
Lovely. That's a lovely thought. Anu?
Yeah, I think that first, I think everyone should evaluate whether that's the right thing, because I think one of the things is that sometimes people get swayed by what is cool and happening. And I think, for instance, when we were graduating, this wasn't the cool thing to do, but now it is. And I think that's one thing I'd like to advise people, that you have to know what you like doing. And if you do not like the ups and downs of an entrepreneurial venture, then you better rethink about it, because it's important that you understand that this is not only the glamour that you see outside, it is a lot of hard work that goes into it. So, but at the same time, if someone's convinced, then I say it doesn't matter. There is no right time, there is nothing, but ultimately it is your conviction and your passion. So, one of the things that I will not do is to advise everybody, because a lot of people come to me and say, I have an idea, and I say, it's not just your idea, I want to know your conviction and what is, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be in a day where you have zero cash balance in your bank account and you're still running a company? Can you do that? Right? I mean, those are the sort of things people need to ask themselves before which they can actually go. There are many days like this. Now, I enjoy that, but not many people will, right? I mean, not many people will enjoy both a high and a low. And I think being an entrepreneur, you have to be built that way. It has to be in your DNA to be able to say that, I enjoy this because my bigger purpose is something else. And my bigger purpose is creating something new or doing something which I'm passionate about. And if I can do that, I would strongly advise them, it doesn't matter if you're 30, if you're 20, if you're 50 or 90, do it. But if it is not, if you're thinking about, when you have enough money to start it, never is a good time, So I think that's the only thing that I like to tell people. It's only you who can decide whether you're built for it or not. But do a somewhat of a self understanding, regardless of what is cool around you and what is hot. So.
Brilliant. Thanks, George. That's quite interesting. So, Deepta?
Yeah.
Constraints. A lot of women with constraints, a lot of women with no support, but an idea. What would you share with them?
It's what Monica said, it's what Anu said, and it's also about just having faith that if this is what it is that I want to do, are you willing to see it through no matter what? I think, and one of the most important things is to find a mentor, to find someone who is willing to talk to you about your business in a very objective manner and tell you whether, look, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? It's okay, it's cool to have an idea, but do you have the mettle, do you have the wherewithal to make this a business? And like what Anu said, are you willing to start from scratch? Are you willing to go through these days of, absolute, you can feel absolutely despondent about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's about finding motivation from that point on and taking it forward. So I think it also comes with understanding your own personality. I think that's the first thing we ought to do, to see whether we're okay to be in a 9-to-5 job, or do we have it in us to take it beyond that. A very, very keen sense of introspection is required before you decide to take the plunge, and find someone who you can talk to about this in a very sort of no holds barred manner, and then decide whether this is for you.
Lovely. So I think we're progressing well. I think I'm going to move focus slightly to more business as we go along. But before that, one common question to all of you is, so there's the startup ecosystem which has grown leaps and bounds in the last 5 to 10 years. And of course, one sees a lot of women taking the plunge. But as, especially from where I stand, there seems to be a disconnect, or there seems to be two different worlds. When you talk to women building businesses, one, they're building different kind of businesses, they're building different scale of businesses. They're not chasing the big VC success as nicely glorified or as nicely put there as version of success. And what I would like to know from you, and because Anu, I think you have a very mainstream business, it's a scalable business, and I know, Monica, you have a very conscious decision on where you want to take this business, both in size and quality. And what I want to know is, what do you feel about, one, the growth of the startup ecosystem, and how does it differ for you from where you are as an entrepreneur? I mean, and how does that impact tons of women out there who are really battling perhaps a similar kind of difference? Monica?
Like you said, I think we've spoken about it before also, that I have a very specific, in my head I'm very clear where I'm going to take it, in the sense that today if I want, I can probably go ahead and set up a factory. I mean, leave the finances aside, I mean, for a minute, which is a huge deal, but yes, apart from that, I can. I mean, in the past 2.5 years, I've come to a point where I know that it will run. But do I want to do it? It's a conscious decision that I know I don't want to do it from a multiple point of view. One, I think most women, when they turn to business, apart from a satisfaction, they are also looking at certain amount of work-life balance, certain amount of flexibility in their lives, certain amount of control. At least I am certain amount of control, in the sense that, okay, I'm doing it, I'm putting my 100% into it, but yes, I do not want to be in a position where I come to a point where I actually have no time for my family. It's actually difficult for me to drop everything and run to the school at 8, 9 a.m. in the morning and say, okay, I have to do this. Or come back home for family dinners. I mean, there have been times where we have been missing from family dinners for all practical reasons. But yes, so for me, it's a conscious decision where I want to cut off and be a gourmet, run in the background. So I'm scaling up, but the business is scaling up in a different direction than it was before. The consulting is scaling up big time, the workshops are scaling up big time, but the orders probably are toning down to an extent to where I pick and choose what I want to run and pick and choose what I want to execute. For me, it's primarily more because of flexibility, to create that time balance between house. Also, not just the house, also the other passions. I mean, I'm a big traveler, big photographer, I mean, a big hobby photographer. So I need to take my time off every 3 months for 2 weeks and just get out. So if I'm running a factory or a setup which is working 25/7, I know that's not going to work for me. So I think it's a fine line that you tread between where you want to take it and you take about. I see a lot of women, like you said, not making it big because somewhere we stop ourselves thinking, okay, fine. Ultimately, in the end of it, like you said, the buck stops on us when it comes to home running. So probably it's that.
So it is. Anu?
Yeah, no, I'm certainly ambitious in terms of what I want where I want the business to go. And I think because I've had enough help to do what I need to do at the home front, I think it is easy. And I think for me it is about being able to create the impact. That if I can create the impact that I want, creating very satisfying. When I started first with Awesome, which was my first company, I still remember the motivation really was to be able to create a world-class product in the informatics space where you have a shrink wrap product that you can go out there and sell and let it be sold to others. I think this time with Map My Genome, it was about being able to say, can I do something that will be the first of its kind in India and be able to showcase India as being doing, something on the genetic side. And I think for me, that is a big dream that I want to fulfill. And I'll do anything that will be what that is necessary to be able to get to that. So I don't look at the other. I'm sure there are many obstacles on the way, but I think I don't look at them. So
brilliant. More power to you. More power to world-class companies from India. Deepta?
I I know exactly where I want to go. Yes, I am very ambitious as well. So I think I will just, I know for a fact that there are going to be obstacles, and these are just things that you have to take in your stride, and you will find workarounds. You see, I think one thing I believe is that when you want something really badly, the universe will sort of, you know, yes, it will, and that's what's been happening. You know, I've struggled. There are days when I have felt absolutely down in the dumps, but I have found the strength to pick up and go forward. I've also done a lot of things that require to be done for a business. Like I have found a mentor. I have worked on a business plan. I have found some people now who have been gracious enough to come and help out with the business. I have just hired my first person, and you know that, Saidi. So these things happen. They fall in place, but it's about getting to that point. You know, it's about saying, I'm going to go ahead and do it no matter what. Yes, scaling is one of the biggest challenges. There are ways that I think I can scale. So it will mean having to evaluate your business every now and then and say, look, this is not working. So it's okay if I can just drop this and go towards something that is showing more promise. And I think that's one thing that you need to constantly keep looking at as an entrepreneur. You've got to see where your business is going and where it's headed. And be able to take these decisions on the fly. So it's not about, okay, I'm a storyteller, I'm going to be doing only storytelling. That's not going to make business sense. I have to see what are things that I can do around it, find alternate revenue streams, and just keep this ball rolling.
Brilliant. We have two questions. Yeah, sorry.
Also, I'd like to add on. I mean, what is scaling really? I mean, scaling can be done in multiple ways, right? I mean, it can be in numbers, it can be in various other streams. So, I mean, like Deepta said, like I said before, I think it's just constant reevaluating in your own head where you want to be and what you're doing is right. I mean, sometimes you just have to accept that, okay, what you're doing is not working. Yeah. Just leave this aside and move on and try something else.
So we have 7 more minutes, and I'm going to take 2 audience questions that we have. The first one was about fear of failure. So Arunima Chandlia asks, in the process of ideation to execution, has the fear of failure pulled you back? How have you dealt with it? Monica, I'll ask you.
Fear of failure. Yes, there have been days where you feel you're down the dumps. What have you done with your life? Is this what I started to achieve out for? I mean, is this me? But I think one of the major parts of being an entrepreneur, being someone who can be an entrepreneur, or being an entrepreneur, is being able to deal with it, being able to deal failure, being able to rediscover yourself after the failure, pull yourself back and say, okay, this is not working. I am going to keep going. I'm going to find something else that works, and I am going to make this happen.
Brilliant.
The other thing which I would add on is, she says, has the fear of failure pulled you back? I mean, in the execution of an idea, maybe not. I mean, I have ideas which people have told me, Monica, this is not going to work, think about it. But if in my opinion, if in my plan, I felt this worked, I have gone ahead and done it. 7 out of 10 times it has worked. So those 3 times, you just kind of deal with it and move away.
Brilliant. I think last few minutes of this session, I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds to pitch your business because this is going to go online, and let's share about your business to the rest of the world. Deepta, will start with you.
Whoa, okay.
30 seconds. Come on.
Deepta was waiting for the turn to come in the last.
Right. Well, this is a business, a company that is doing something very interesting, very exciting in the field of learning and development. It's about using a very traditional, age-old method of communication and finding new ways to bring it to various groups of people using technology as one of the areas of application. So I mean, we want to be in the services business and in the products business. We're trying to do multiple things with storytelling, which is probably the oldest method of communication in the world today. So that's where we are right now. Yeah.
Great. Good luck to you. Anu?
So I think in the age of healthcare costs rising tremendously, I think one of the things we address is to get diagnostics and prognostics to the common consumer. And one of the things we started out with is a product that we call Genome Patri, which many of you will recognize it as being some takeoff on the Janam Patri, because it sort of brings the horoscope of health for you. And you can actually figure out what that means in terms of your disease predispositions. And you can take preventive action. So I think what we're trying to get the consumer to understand is that the early you know about your possible risks, you can be able to then make risk modification to your lifestyle and be able to diagnose it early so that you can be treated. Because the cost of the return on investment when you detect a disease late is way, way higher than what you're doing when you're doing it early on. So we're trying to do it at the consumer level, at the hospitals, as well as hopefully at some point with the state and the national government.
Lovely, lovely. That sounds like a brilliant business, and I'm sure you'll go places. You are going places. Monica, cinnamon, tell us more. 30 seconds.
30 seconds? Okay. So food has been a part of important part of our life as long as I remember. Cinnamon is here to bring back food in a very interesting way in your life, whether you just want to eat, want to cook, or a restaurant you want to serve. We have solutions for you at every level. We cater, we teach, and we help you set up a business.
Brilliant. Lovely. So I have one more question, and I think, Anu, you could help us answer this, which is, how does one know their idea will work for sure?
I think one doesn't, though, but an entrepreneur is foolish enough to believe it does. So I think because ultimately the idea works if you can execute it right, and if you have enough perseverance, you will also be willing to move it a little bit this way, that way, to turn, to find those avenues of where the growth is. So you don't know, but you think you know. So, and I think that's what drives that is what creates the passion in you to be able to create that, to do it.
Brilliant. Good enough. Stick to your idea, anchor it, and keep it flexible. Great. My last question to each one of you, and we'll come back to you, Monica, is about your individual leadership styles. And do tell us about your own leadership styles and as entrepreneurs, your belief in whatever style of leadership you believe in.
I think I personally believe in saying, okay, one, being very hands-on myself. I mean, two, give the person the responsibility. The minute you make your people responsible, they feel like delivering, and lead by example, let go of responsibilities, which is the hardest thing being an entrepreneur. It is, I mean, you want to do everything yourself. I mean, if it was legal, we would, I'm sure we'll all create 10 clones of ourselves and put 10 parts of the business and let it happen. But yes, I think let go, give responsibility, delegate. That's what ultimately works.
Lovely. We have 1 minute to go. Anu, quickly about your leadership style. And I know you've done it.
I allow people to do what they can, but what I do is I have a task management system, which I meet for every day at 9:30 to make sure that people are doing what they're doing. But at the same time, even though I have a high threshold for nonsense, once I reach there, I am a brutal boss. So I think there is that's how I am. So, what I continue to work, the way I like to inspire people is by the vision and the impact they can create. But beyond, and do the normal things like managing their tasks. But beyond that, I think,
delegate and mentor. Lovely. Deepta, last word on your leadership style.
It's participative and collaborative. I like to empower people for what they've been hired to do. I believe they know what they're doing. So I just let them do it. And yeah, of course, I put in a lot of effort into picking the right people. But yeah, I don't micromanage. I don't get on review calls at 6 p.m. every day. I don't, call people and bother them about whether they've done what they're supposed to do or not. I just give them full faith and responsibility to execute the job to the best of their abilities, and they have so far. I haven't been unhappy at all with anyone.
Great. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Just the right moment. We are back to really we are at the end of this session, but I think there are more learnings, and we hope that we can take this forward both online and offline. Thank you for joining us. And you can catch this broadcast on YouTube later. We'll send you the links. Great. More power to you. More power to your inspiration, and hope you continue to inspire others. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.